One of the hottest trends over the past few years in worship music, something new that's been cropping up recently, are these octave jumps. Do you know what I'm talking about? The songs start down really low and maybe you can barely sing them. Maybe you struggle in the basement of the song, but then about halfway through the song, as they build to the climax, what happens? They jump the octave and it's beautiful and there's this huge boost in the energy of the song. That is an arrangement technique that I love that producers are using nowadays, but as you might have noticed, it's not always friendly for congregational worship, and it might not even be as friendly for you as a worship leader. Maybe you struggle with those octave jumps. That's why I want to share with you 3 things that you can do when you're struggling with those octave jumps in a song. Because if you're struggling with them, your church is going to struggle with them too. Let's start off simple. The most simple way you can overcome the dreaded octave jump in a song is to not do it. That's right. What if you just picked an octave to sing the song in, and then you stayed in that octave? Let's take, for example, the song Your Love Never Fails. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I always think of this song in the key of C, which this is what it sounds like in the key of C with the octave jump. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love, here's the octave jump. And on and on and on and on it goes. Yes, it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. Getting a little bit harder to sing there. Let's hear the chorus here. This is where it gets crazy. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Now, I can kind of sing that Your Love note. That is a high G, by the way. Maybe I didn't sing it that well. Maybe I sounded like one of those screaming goats. But I can kind of hit that note. But if I can only kind of hit that note, then the people in my church 100% cannot hit that note. Which means they might be comfortable for the first half of the song, but once we get to the second half of the song, they're just gonna stop singing because it's way too high. So, like I said, what if we just didn't do the octave jump? What do I mean by that? Well, we just pick an octave to sing in and we stay there, but we aren't going to do it in the original key then, because the original key was written with the octave jump in mind. So what I like to do is, if the octave jump is too high, then what I like to do is I like to take the song key and move it down probably like a fifth, and then sing what I would consider in my mind the low octave part, but sing it up the octave. So, for example, whenever we sing that low part of the song, your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me, the lowest note that we're singing is this A down here. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. So, we don't want to sing that if we move it down a fifth, because that would take us to the key of G. And in the key of G, that means we would be singing an E note. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Really low. So we sing it up the octave, and we're gonna stay in that octave the entire time. So if we don't do the octave jump, it would sound like this. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. It's your love. Here's where the octave jump would be. And on and on and on and on it goes. Yes, it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And then, of course, once we get to the chorus, we're just singing it in the same octave that we did at the very beginning. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails. Now, instead of singing from this G up here, the high note, down to an A, or it might even go down to a G at one point. I'm not sure if that's the full range or not, but it's a crazy range nonetheless. Now, instead of doing that, our range is from a D down to this D. And we have shrunk the range. and it has now become singable. That's a totally singable range for your congregation. This isn't without its drawbacks, though. Of course, the reason that those octave jumps are there are to increase the dynamic and the energy of the song. So if you are going to cut out these octave jumps, you need to be really intentional about building dynamics into the songs in other ways. I'll link a video down in the description below to help you do that, where I talk about song arranging techniques. Let's say you're not sold on this idea that you can just cut out octave jumps. What else can you do? Well, another thing that you can try is to split the vocal parts between a male voice and a female voice. And I've seen this done both ways. Maybe a male starts and sings that lower octave part, and then whenever the octave jumps, a female voice comes in, because people generally regard female voices as higher than male voices. And so just that change in the timbre of the lead vocal from male to female changes things up enough where it creates this dynamic in the song that is different, which once again, we have to get to the base of why we're actually doing these octave jumps in the first place. It's not just because it's cool and it fits the melody of the song. You could sing the melody in the same octave the whole time. The purpose of the octave jump is so that we can add additional dynamics to the arrangement of the song. So this is one of the other ways that you can do that. Of course, you could do it vice versa as well. You could have a female sing the lower octave part and then a male sing the higher octave part. I think of the song You Are Good by John Mark McMillan and his wife Sarah. She starts that song and then it transitions to John singing in the bridge, and there's like a tangible example. So if you want to hear an example of this in action, listen to the song You Are Good and take note to the dynamics that you hear when you just simply switch from female to male. Now, the first step in the grieving process, I don't even know if that's true, but a step in the grieving process is acceptance. And so maybe you need to grieve the octave jump in your song by just simply accepting that it's there. And you're gonna say to yourself, okay, part of this song is going to be unsingable to my congregation. Obviously that's not ideal, and I don't really like to lead with that thought in mind, but sometimes these octave jumps are unavoidable, so we have to make compromises. What that means is whenever you're down an octave, depending on what key you put it in, either that's going to be down too low for the majority of people to sing, or you're going to do it in a higher key to get that lower octave up a little bit so it's comfortable for people. And then you're going to have the problem where the top end of the song, whenever you jump the octave, is too high for people to sing. So you have to make a decision. Do you want the low part to be too low, or do you want the high part to be too high? Here's my rule of thumb on that. If I have to choose between the low part being too low and the high part being too high, I always choose that the low part is too low for people to sing, because I would rather have them sing whenever the energy kicks in the song. Usually the octave jump part of the song happens at like the climax of the song, where we're building an energy and we really want people to sing along. So if it's too high, people are gonna cut out, and that's the opposite of what we want at that part of the song, which means we have to sacrifice the beginning of the song, understanding that people are going to be singing in the basement and you aren't really going to be hearing them. And honestly, like if they wanted to, they could jump the octave in that part and it would probably be okay. And then it might actually cause them to sing louder, because instead of singing down here with you, they're going to be singing up here and there's going to be more volume. So my rule of thumb, always have the lower part lower than it should be, as opposed to the higher part being higher than it should be. Whatever you decide to do with the octave jumps, do it in the name of leading worship, not just for what makes you sound good. We should be leading with our congregation in mind. We are, after all, worship leaders. So if you want to improve your worship leading, you can work on these song arrangement techniques, but you can also check out the free audio training that I've got linked down in the description below. It's called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. In that training, you'll learn 5 simple things that will help you lead an engaging time of worship this Sunday with confidence. They aren't hard to do. You just have to make the decision to do them, implement them before and on this Sunday, and you will instantly level up your worship leading. So check that out in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Till I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.